Are there any traditional downtrodden baseball teams that are having success this year? Teams that are usually bad that this year are good.
Um, let me think. No, not really. The bad teams are still bad. The Marlins are bad. The Phillies are bad. Um, Seattle's not. They were supposed to be better than they are. They're not. Oakland is usually pretty downtrodden, but they do what Oakland always does. They're fake. They'll make a run, and then all of a sudden they'll just fade. They're okay. They're not great. They're okay. I mean, if you want to talk about a downtrodden, I would guess you would talk about the White Sox all those years. They're actually good now, but for the most part, no. I mean, Arizona really stinks. Colorado really stinks. I think Arizona lost 16 road games in a row, and then I think they beat the Mets or something. They beat somebody, which I think it was the Mets, which made me laugh. and by the way, the Subway Series is this week, and I think the game should be played in a real Subway because these two teams they're not very good. And what's worse, the Mets can't hit at all. The Mets, in the history of the Mets, the only time they ever hit was in 1969 because they played, their offense played, it was in a miracle year. Their offense, which lost 100 games for the last 7 years before that, actually played out of their minds. One year they lost 120. That's still the record, modern day record for losses in a year. You only play 162. They were 42 and 120. But that year they were great. And then in the 80s, they were great. They really could hit in the 80s. And they would have won, especially if they had the wild cards back then. They didn't. But the Cardinals were great too. And they battled every year. And every year, they won one year the Mets and the Cardinals won the other years. But the Mets haven't been able to hit since then. The only exception was in 2015 when they got Cespedes. He carried them. All those hits, all those home runs. He did it. You have to be able to hit. The Mets cannot hit. And, and they don't even draft hitters, which shows me, these guys, these scouts don't know what they're doing. Look, the Mets have always been about pitching, which is fine. I got no problem with that. But you got to have some hitting. The Braves were about pitching for 15 years. They won one time. They won a division 15 years in a row. Won once. The Yankees kept beating them, scaring them right out of the building.
I was just thinking about the Braves always knocking on the door all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
A fixture of the World Series.
Right. And you know what? It wouldn't have been 15 in a row because when they had the strike year, Montreal was the best team, and they would have won the division. I believe they were in the same division still. They would have won the division. They would have won it because they were the best team, and it's a shame. And the Yankees, we would have won. No, you weren't ready. You proved that the next year in '95 when you got beat. Seattle took you out. I could have won a lot of money on that, by the way. I didn't bet it. I knew Seattle was going to beat them. But no, all those guys that helped the Yankees win 2 years later were on Montreal that year. So, they had Wetland, and they just had a great team. I mean, they did.
So as it stands, Bob, is there a clear front runner to win it all in Major League Baseball at the moment?
Is there a clear front runner to win it?
Yeah, who's the favorite as it stands?
Well, the Dodgers were favored going in. The Yankees were high up there going in, but that's pretty much a wash. They're not. I would still think the Dodgers. They've still got to be the favorites. I mean, they're only a game and a half, 2 games back. What's really important? They have to win the division because if they're a wild card, it's a 1-game playoff. You can lose it. And they're going to be playing San Diego, who's they can hit because they bought a lot of players. They can play good for 1 game. That's all you got to do. That they have to win a division, so they don't have to get into that 1-game wild card thing. That's really big.
You like the 1-game wild card thing?
No, I don't. I don't like anybody making the playoffs unless you win the division. I'm a little more if you're not good enough during the regular season, you're not good enough to be in it. I don't care what your record is. And put it this way. I know this for a fact. I wasn't born yet, everybody, but I do know baseball. So in 1954, the Indians won the American League. Okay. And that's all it was. There wasn't divisions. It was the American League and the National League. It was all one big happy division. And they won 111 games. Okay, that year, that's a lot. But the Yankees finished one game out, won 110, and didn't make the playoffs. Well, there was no playoff. Didn't make the World Series. You won your league. That was the pennant. There was no playoff. I like that. The Yankees won 110 games, but they didn't make the playoffs because they weren't good enough. The Indians did. They went to the World Series and lost to the Giants. 4-0. Willie Mays, with the catch over his shoulder that they talk about to this day. But you know what? That's what happened. And I like that better. I told you, Rob, before, when Wooden was coach, UCLA was 30-0 one year, and SC was 28-2. Didn't win the Pac-8 back then. Now it's Pac-12. And did they make the tournament? No, because only the first place teams made the tournaments. There's only 32 teams.
And meanwhile, they were good enough probably to win the whole thing, too.
They were good enough to win it. Well, they wouldn't have beat UCLA. We've already beat them.
They would have lost to UCLA, yeah. Except for UCLA.
Right.
They could win games in the tournament.
That's right.
Yeah.
And should they have been allowed in? No. I don't care what your record is. Because what they're doing now is they're letting everybody in, and why are you playing a regular season? You're diminishing it. It's not even worth anything anymore. It's a joke. It was the beginning of confusion that we have today, where people don't even know the analytics sucks. I mean, it does. It sucks.
Well, again, analytics is here to stay for now.
Not if I had my way.
Well, one day, maybe, Bob. So here we are. We're kind of coming to the end. Let's do a little prospectus here of what's happening.
We have a Subway Series coming. You want to talk about that for a minute?
Sure, of course.
Okay, that's long enough. No,
who's going to win the Subway Series?
Well, the game's in Yankee Stadium. The Mets have to hit, and DeGrom's not going to pitch. He pitched last night. If the Mets don't hit, they won't win. I mean, the Yankees will win, and then all the Yankee fans on Twitter will start bragging again, and then the Yankees go next week, play somewhere else, and get destroyed. But it's fun and all that, but the Mets the Mets are getting killed in the overall series. They can't beat the Yanks. I mean, the Mets have to hit to win. They have to hit to win. And, these guys the Mets have on their team, you can sit there and call it the heavy ball or the sticky ball, but the Mets just can't hit. And that's something that's always been that way with the Mets. They can't hit. They can't hit. They can hit with a golf ball. I mean, they just can't. There's something wrong. I'll settle for one win. I'll be happy. I don't know if I'm going to get it, though. I don't know. But the Yankees aren't so great this year, so maybe it'll happen. Maybe.
Now, where are the matchups? Are they all going to be one stadium?
Yankee Stadium. Well, these 3 games are at Yankee Stadium. Mm-hmm. When my brother comes home in September, we're going, Rob. That's in Citi Field. That's at Citi Field. So
we'll see what happens. Yeah. So what about projecting NHL? Is Tampa? How many is Tampa winning this thing? Locked? Is it locked?
I think they're going to win now. I do think the Canadians will have a slight comeback, though. They're not going to get swept. The Canadians could win all 3 games in Montreal, but it would take a big effort. Because the one thing about Tampa, they can play physical, they can play fast. They're faster than everybody else. And they got a good goalie, so that's hard to beat. And they won last year, so they know how to win. So that's hard to beat.
I agree. So how about the Hawks and Bucks? You see the Bucks winning that series?
I do. The Bucks will win, even without Giannis. Maybe not the next game. I think Atlanta will probably win the next game. But
so assuming that happens, how about the Bucks and Suns? Who do you like in the final?
Ooh, I'm leaning towards the Suns. Especially if Giannis don't play, definitely the Suns. But The Bucks aren't deep enough, Rob. And you know what Jabbar said? Jabbar said they're not going to win it. Did you know that?
I didn't hear that.
Yes, he
That's
did. Yes, he did.
that's a devastating statement for the
Yes, he
Bucks.
did. Yeah, and he played on him. I mean, he played on them the last time they won it in 1970-71. But he was Lou Cinder then. But you know what? No, I think Phoenix. I'm pretty high on Phoenix. They have the center. They have Booker, who's amazing. Paul still got some things left in the tank. They have the home court, which is big. And the Bucks may not have their best player. The Bucks aren't deep enough, even with Giannis playing. They need other guys to step up, but they have to have Lopez step up all the time. Middleton's good, but they've got no other shooter because they got rid of Brogdon, who was really good for them. And they don't play down low enough. They take too many threes. And if they're off on the threes, they're finished. The game is still won in the paint and mid-range. That's where you win it. And these guys don't get that. They don't. So, I'm picking Suns. Who are you picking?
I think without Giannis, I think it's a lock.
Well, that's a lock. Well, what if he plays?
If he plays, it's really tough. The Bucks. I thought the Bucks were going to lose to the Nets, so they've proven me wrong already.
Yeah.
So if it's a healthy Bucks and the Suns, I think I'm with you, Bob. I think the Suns just seem to be a better team. They play very efficiently, and they're a well-oiled machine. Chris Paul is doing a great job distributing, and like you said, they have the pieces. They have the big guy. This Booker is coming out is turning out to be one of the greats. So I agree. I think the Suns will be rested, and I think they'll take control of the final series early. I think they'll. Who would get the home court if the
Phoenix
Bucks play
has it. Phoenix has it. I saw it.
So I think they'll win those two games at home. I think they will those first two games, and then I think eventually they'll win the series.
Well, it'll be a really good series with Giannis, but I still think the Suns are going to pull that out somehow because when I look at the Bucks, to me, it's just something's missing. I mean, and you got to remember that injuries played a part in the Nets losing too because Kyrie got hurt, and then Harden couldn't move, and he was hurt bad even though he played because they said it before the game in Game 6. So like if this wasn't a playoff game, he wouldn't be playing tonight. So he couldn't move. So
well, what I like about these playoffs though is it's a new set of teams that haven't been in it for a while.
Right.
The Suns, as you said, have never won it.
Never won.
When did the Bucks last win a title?
70-71. Lou Cinder was the center. And
have the Hawks ever won a title?
They did win a title. They beat Bill Russell in 1958, the Celtics. Bill got hurt and was playing with one eye. He got his eye poked, and he can only see with one eye. And Boston lost the last game. They lost in 6, but they lost in St. Louis by 1 point. The game was 1 point. So they wouldn't have lost if you had.
So I find that intriguing because now the East representative is going to be a team that hasn't won in decades, and the Western team, the Suns have never won. And I think it's a healthy freshener for the league to not have a LeBron team versus a Golden State team. The super teams didn't pan out this year. I think it's a nice pick. That I'll be pretty happy with either team. I'd like to see the Bucks win it all. I think, and then second would be the Hawks, third Suns. If I had my choice to win it, I think it'd be special for the Bucks to win it, considering we've had these guests on that were so intimately connected to the franchise.
Right.
Banners, jerseys in the rafters, rings. I mean, it would be something to see the Bucks win it all this year, given that fact.
It'd be nice. I don't know. I just got I got a suspicion, like I did with the Canadians. I just think the Suns are going to win.
I think so too. I agree. I think the Suns are they're the favorite in finals.
Right. The Bucks wouldn't have got by the Nets if Kyrie didn't get hurt.
I agree. Yes, that was that was the end. The Nets were in control of that series.
Right, they were, and they still almost won it if his foot wasn't on the line,
If
they
it
would.
was on the line, it was game.
Yeah, that's right. I suspect the Nets will be back in with a fury. I really do. But you never know about next year. A lot of things can change. Players can go different
Those
places.
guys aren't that young. I mean, for NBA players now, they're in their 30s. Those guys, those stars, and
right.
You saw, it just takes one injury.
That and sometimes you don't play as good the next year, and other teams come out of nowhere and play better, and players change teams, so you never know. You don't know.
So we'll see what happens. Now, folks, we are going to have guests returning to the show soon. We will be doing a follow-up video on sports betting because the college football lines are out. So everyone's favorite betting guru, the Herb Meister, will return soon. So everyone stay tuned. Remember, like and subscribe. Support the show by spreading the word. We're going to be expanding the show on other video platforms. So keep an eye out for the alt tech sites. The sports show, we're going to branch out from YouTube and check out some of these other platforms. So you know the drill. Take a search for the sports show with Bob Spino on the various platforms, and you'll find us there. With that, anything else to say, Bob, before we close shop?
No. Well, you know what? I just talked to my brother. We are going to get on Pacquiao, and we have Sampras. We're working on that. It looks like it's going to happen. And we got a lot
great
more.
We get Pete Sampras on. That would be a great commentator for Wimbledon. So hopefully he's going to make it.
Right. And the U.S. Open, which is coming up right after that. So, which is what I wanted. I wanted to do the timing right around that time. So,
and remember, there's still going to be at some point this summer a special panel of guests led by the film commissioner of Belize and former NBA and collegiate player Nigel Miguel. So stay tuned for that. That's going to be one of our specials. That's going to be a real-time marathon.
Yes, please do. We're definitely looking forward to that. It's going to be a lot of fun.
All right, folks. With that, signing off for the Sports Show with Bob Spino. This is Rob.
This is Bob.